One day, a young man named Kai Taki stood on the school rooftop, reflecting on his life. Despite his best efforts, he felt defeated, contemplating whether to end it all by jumping. He remembered the times he was bullied and assaulted by other students, who tried to take his gaming device. Struggling with these painful memories, he resolved not to give up or run away. Suddenly, a system appeared before his eyes, announcing the completion of a global reconstruction. Confused, Kai was told that his life would be re-evaluated, and the abilities he was meant to gain in the future would now be implemented. As he tried to comprehend this, he witnessed a car floating in the air, followed by a massive tremor that nearly made him fall. The scene then shifted to Kai's bullies, who mocked and belittled him, questioning whether he would soon die. To their surprise, a window appeared before them, stating that their lives would also be evaluated. That day, the world underwent a dramatic transformation. Monsters emerged, threatening humanity. However, people were granted unique skills to fight these creatures, with the specific abilities depending on their personality and traits. Sadly, some failed to harness this newfound power, and the fragile order of society collapsed, as morals and rationality crumbled in an instant. Suddenly, a man named Takahashi asked if Kai was bullying the weak again. Takahashi, whom Kai recognized as their teacher Shirmata, inquired about the situation, noting that it didn't seem like the teacher was trying to correct the children. Shirmata smiled and expressed doubt that there was any point in trying to educate Takahashi. This irritated Takahashi, who asked what the wimpy teacher meant. In response, Shirmata called him trash and told him to kill himself. As the two argued heatedly, the group of green-clad individuals menacingly smiled, ready to attack. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, Kai managed to grab the edge of the floor and used his force to grab a pipe, successfully escaping danger. The system then informed him that the Unyielding and Revenger skills had been fully implemented, and their merger had created the Unyielding Revenger skill. Leaning on the barricade, Kai realized that he didn't want to die and decided he would live for himself from now on, no matter what others thought. Upon touching the skill, the system explained its effects. Unyielding would activate upon taking fatal damage, allowing him to live as long as he didn't give up, and Revenger would fill a gauge, granting him a temporary power boost and skill acquisition once the gauge was full. Kai initially thought the skill was useless, as he would remain weak until the gauge filled up. But when he heard Takahashi's strange behavior, he wondered what the problem was, with the gauge at 5%. A loud voice suddenly startled the two, asking if Takahashi was on the roof. It was their teacher, Shirmata, who slowly approached Takahashi and raised his smelly, dark underarms. Witnessing Takahashi's desire to flee, Kai thinks Takahashi is afraid of their teacher. To his surprise, the teacher makes a violent move that causes Takahashi to fall into eternal sleep. Fear engulfs Kai's body as he wonders what is happening and asks what the weird black object their teacher is using. Shirmata, with a menacing smile, states that he cleaned another piece of trash and slowly approaches Kai. Weird smoke emerges from Shirmata's weapon as it gradually dissipates, and Kai observes his surroundings. Kai runs as fast as he can, but the teacher notices him while he's desperate to reach the door. Shirmata raises his hand, and as the smoke gathers, he inquires why Kai had forgotten to greet his teacher. Kai looks at the teacher, who is now holding a dark weapon, and after the teacher releases a powerful grin, he unleashes his cursed death towards Kai. Luckily, Kai manages to dodge. Kai stands up and runs to the door, but to his shock, he sees other students lying on the stairs, lifeless. Kai runs for his life, and his teacher slowly follows, managing to inflict him. As Kai continues to flee, he repeatedly curses, and Shirmata turns his head left and right, saying what a restless student Kai is. The teacher raises his hand and throws his weapon directly at the student, grinning while saying goodbye. Unfortunately, Kai has no chance of avoiding the attack and receives fatal damage. However, the unyielding system activates, telling Kai he will live as long as he does not give up. Kai almost loses consciousness, mumbling to himself that when he had just found the will to live, this happened. A flashback shows a conversation between Shirmata and Kai, where the teacher tells Kai he is part of the problem. In the present, Shirmata tells Kai not to back up anymore, and Kai feels so much pain in his body that he can't move. Seeing this idiotic system, Kai mumbles that even if the system tells him he won't die, he'll probably die from pain and bleeding. He curses and asks why it always has to be him, gritting his teeth and looking at the teacher, wondering why he has to be killed by this teacher. The revenge gauge exceeds 90%, and Shirmata Kenshi is automatically designated as the target. Shirmata grabs Kai by the collar, about to send him to eternal sleep, but stops when Kai calls him sensei, asking if he hates him this much. Kai curses and cries, asking why it has to be him, as he remembers the students pointing their fingers at him. Shirmata states that he knew it wasn't Kai's fault, and everyone knew, yet chose Kai as the sacrifice. Shirmata tells Kai that a sacrifice like him should shut up and just die. Suddenly, an unknown force pushes Shirmata, and his eyeglasses fall to the ground. Shirmata is shocked, unable to believe what he's seeing, though he concludes it's impossible. Shirmata Kenshi wondered if Kai had somehow become more powerful. The student in front of him seemed like a completely different person. Kai clenched his fist and told the teacher to die, saying that he would experience a temporary surge in his stats and be granted divine retribution. Suddenly, a black hole appeared, and from it emerged a terrifying, undead-like creature, the divine retribution. Seeing this, the teacher asked what it was, but Kai remained silent. When Kai widely opened his eyes, the divine retribution rushed forward at the teacher. Shirmata Kenshi almost froze in his position, using his arm to cover his face after inhaling the unpleasant breath of the divine retribution. He dropped to the ground, kneeling, and looked around, but couldn't see the ugly creature. He realized that his body was fine, and grinned, admitting that the unknown creature had scared him to death. However, now that he knew it couldn't harm him, he planned to finish the student. Shirmata Kenshi threw his cursed death at Kaitaki, confidently saying it was a bullseye. But when the weapon dropped to the ground, he gritted his teeth, unable to believe what he had witnessed. Kai's skill, Curse Reflection, had been activated, and the divine retribution had grown stronger. Discovering that his cursed death wasn't working against the student, Shirmata Kenshi inquired what Kai had done. Kai simply smiled and unleashed multiple cursed deaths, launching them directly at the teacher. The attacks were all deflected, and the system repeatedly stated that the skill Cursed Reflection had been activated. The skill Divine Retribution had grown stronger. Witnessing this, the teacher was shocked, and his mouth was wide open, as if waiting for a fly to enter. Kite asked the teacher what was wrong, and the teacher furiously looked at Kite, saying that his ability couldn't hit him. Trembling, the teacher pointed his finger at the student, Shirmata Kenshi, and told him that it wasn't true, asking if Kite wanted to say that an insect like him was inferior to his teacher. Kite didn't answer, so the teacher summoned his ability, stating that God had granted him the power to eradicate trash like Kite. But before he could use his ability, Kite materialized before him and landed a solid strike on the teacher's body, causing him immense pain. Kite didn't stop there and showered the teacher with multiple punches to his body and a finishing strike to his face, sending him flying to another universe while he covered his mouth, about to burst with blood. Kite then swiftly jumped and delivered a painful knee strike to the teacher's stomach, nearly causing him to lose consciousness. Still unsatisfied, Kite furiously looked at the teacher and delivered a powerful punch that shattered the ground. The shocked teacher was then grabbed by the face and thrown to the ground by Kite. As the beaten teacher lay there, Kite summoned the decursed ability, which shocked the teacher. Before he could fully comprehend what was happening, the ability Kite summoned sent the teacher into eternal sleep. Kite then slowly transformed back to his original form. Upon observing the lifeless teacher, Kite was overwhelmed with the realization that he had sent someone to eternal sleep. He cried, wiped his face, gritted his teeth, and approached the teacher, removing his uniform. He later placed it on the lifeless monkey. Groups of repulsive goblins could be seen emerging from the gate. Seeing a different kind of creature for the first time made Kai ask what it was. When one of the fools looked up, he quickly lowered himself and wondered where he was. He tapped his head to calm himself down, and knowing that strange things were happening, he inquired about the Japanese self-defense forces and police's actions. He grabbed his phone, but upon seeing that it had no signal, he wondered what was going on. He went to the window and tried to peek outside. Upon seeing a bunch of disgusting idiots, he decided to get out of the place. Later, the city could be seen as a complete disaster, and while other goblins were on the rooftop, Kite was fighting others on the other floor. After slashing one of the goblins, he quickly ran downstairs and, upon seeing another, quickly slashed it and ran towards the exit, exhausted. As he ran, a tiny idiot saw him but did nothing except say, "Kite, I think this idiot wants to dance." You idiot, is that how you laugh now, Kite? Are you a goblin? Sorry, sir, it seems like I've adopted the goblin's language. After jumping into a wall and defeating another goblin, Kite quickly rushed forward upon noticing the remaining goblins. He then placed his hand on the ground to use the divine retribution skill, successfully defeating the 3 goblins. Kai, the cameraman, observed the scene and noted that Kite had mentioned that the goblins were no match for him. Kai then told the cameraman to zoom out, muttering that the divine retribution skill was quite useful to him. However, he knew that in games, this type of skill usually doesn't work on stronger opponents. The divine retribution skill is described as the ultimate form of curses, which can bring forth abnormalities among surrounding enemies. The success rate and content depend on the opponent's resistance level. Additionally, during activation, curse reflection is triggered, repelling every inferior curse upon the caster. Kai thinks the skill wouldn't work on opponents with a higher level than him. He then remembers his other skill, the Unyielding Revenger, which allows him to live if he is on the brink of death. When the gauge is filled up, it grants him powerful strength. Meanwhile, some goblins were surveying the area as Kai held his head, wondering if there was a condition he needed to fulfill to level up after killing some goblins using the sword he had picked up. Unbeknownst to him, a goblin behind him had spotted him and was about to attack. However, the Unyielding Revenger skill was activated, and Kai will live as long as he does not give up after receiving fatal damage. He fell to the ground, cursing as he realized he had let his guard down. The 2 monkeys swiftly moved in to finish him off, but Kai grabbed his sword and swiftly sliced them to pieces, as if they were mere vegetables. After dealing with the goblins, he felt a sharp pain in his waist and covered the wound with his hand. He acknowledged that if not for his unyielding skills, he might have perished from the attack, though he wished it was a cheat-level ability instead. Elsewhere, a pig was seen falling to the ground after being struck by a spiked weapon. The man in green raised his spiked weapon, pleased that he had leveled up again. At the same time, another pig was chased and taken down by a monkey. The monkey was then surprised when a man with fire abilities attacked it using his powers. Celebrating his victory, the man with fire raised his hand towards the sky, unaware that Kite was observing his behavior. Witnessing the violence and lawlessness around him, Kai wondered if he had somehow ended up in hell. Realizing that Shirmata Kenshi was not the only one who had gone insane, he tried to escape the area, shouting to himself that none of this had anything to do with him and that humans were weak beings. An elderly man, holding a lifeless body, spotted Kai and rushed to attack him. But Take sensed the threat and angrily kicked the old man's face, sending him flying away. The trembling old man approached Kai, begging for forgiveness and telling the boy to stop. Kite looked at him, considering whether killing the ugly geezer would allow him to level up. But then he remembered a past situation and angrily punched the ground instead, telling the old man to leave as he closed his eyes. He recalled how his younger sister had reminded him that he was going to be late again before they left the house. Their mom had told them to take care of themselves, and as the 2 were on their way, she had told him to stand up straight. Back at home, as their mom prepared their dinner, Kaitaki overheard their conversation. When their mom asked how Kaitaki was doing in school, his sister revealed that she thought her brother was being bullied, but she didn't know anything because he wouldn't say anything. Their mom responded that if it was true, she thought Kaitaki didn't want them to know about it. In response, the sister told their mom that she always prays for her brother and hopes that Kaitaki will be happy again if he eats this bento. Seeing the kindness in her child made their mom smile secretly. As Kaitaki slowly returned to reality, he walked with determination to find his family, hoping they were okay. Upon arriving near their house, his eyes widened as he saw a gate that looked the same as the one at his school. He ran to try to find their house, but when he couldn't see it, he went to the roof and looked at the gate. He stood up and thought that their house might have been completely swallowed by this thing, so he tried to pick up stones and throw them toward the gate. Noticing that the stones were being absorbed, he wondered if he should enter. However, after considering the risks, the thought of his family made him swiftly jump through the gate. Inside the gate, he saw lifeless bodies scattered all over the place. As he held his wounds and observed the strange surroundings, he asked himself if this was what others call another world, given the weird color of the sky. He noticed a familiar building and, moaning in pain, said he needed to find his family. Moments later, he had difficulty finding their house because the buildings were jumbled, but when he saw a post with a street address, he was confident it was his neighborhood. He kept walking and looking around until he saw a familiar building, but was shocked to find that his house was totally wrecked. He ran to the entrance and called for his sister and mom, seeing signs of a fight. Thinking it would be a mess, he carefully walked away, determined to find his family. He stopped when he noticed a goblin saw him, and as he thought he was doomed, the goblin made noise to call the others, to his surprise. The huge goblin was about to grab him. When the huge goblin noticed that the kid, Kai, had seen him, he raised his arm and tried to smash the kid. Even though Kai managed to dodge, he was still sent a few meters away due to the impact. Kai slowly stood up, and as the goblin approached him, he thought that he would die if he fought this goblin head-on. Kai then used his divine retribution ability, launching it towards the huge goblin. A blinding purple light almost engulfed the area, but when the smoke cleared, Kai realized that his attack had not worked, as the goblin seemed unaffected. Witnessing this, Kai realized that he was now doomed. The huge goblin angrily attacked Kai using his fist, creating a massive impact that sent Kai away. As Kai thought of what to do, a bunch of goblins surrounded him. One of the goblins managed to hit him, sending him into the distance. Upon landing, another goblin rushed forward and kicked him, causing him to crash and bounce on the ground. While the goblins looked at Kai's body, he cursed and shouted in his mind, saying that they should not get in his way as he still needed to find his family. Seeing a huge goblin about to attack him, Kai gritted his teeth, thinking that this was now his end. The goblin then smashed him deeper into the ground, causing a massive impact that could be seen from afar. Kai was about to lose consciousness, and while he was thinking that the goblins were just toying with him, he remembered the day he was being bullied. He admitted that he was a weakling loser and, as he tried to reach his family, he suddenly noticed a bunch of lifeless bodies. His eyes widened as he tried to see if one of them was his family.